the euro in Croatia. The Council has recognized the changed geopolitical circumstances and at last sent a clear political signal that the EU is ready for enlargement in the future. The European perspective has been confirmed for three countries which certainly deserve it and which need it to stand up to Russia. However, unfortunately, one can be less optimistic about the Western Balkans. Except in the case of Bosnia-Herzegovina, there is no progress there. The European perspective was confirmed 19 years ago. Blocking the start of negotiations with Albania and North Macedonia threatens the credibility of Europe. This only goes to show that the EU needs to be reformed to make such decisions more efficiently. Bosnia-Herzegovina has all the same been given a certain chance in an electoral year, but the prevailing policies must not repeat old mistakes. The changed geopolitical circumstances should be an incentive to change the political relations in the country, for the better, of course. Bosnia-Herzegovina awaits its place in the EU. Every real step forward on its path will have our support.
We have 6 speakers on the list, and all the rest who tried to, they were not present on all the debates. That's why I give a floor only for 6 speakers. And first one, Henna Virkkunen. And colleagues, I ask please to be a bit less noisy when you are coming in the hemicycles. Henna Virkkunen, catch the procedure.
Arvoisa puhemies, komissaari, oli tärkeä askel.
Paldies, priekšsēdētāji. Mēs
edellytyksin Georgialle myönnettiin jäsenehdokasmaan status. Nämä maat ovat osoittaneet vahvasti halunsa liittyä Euroopan unioniin. Ukraina taistelee parhaillaan vapauden ja demokratian puolesta. Sitä on tuettava kaikin keinoin. Samoin on tuettava näiden hakijamaiden polkua kohti Euroopan unionin jäsenyyttä, samoin kuin Länsi-Balkanin maiden polkua. On selvää, että varsinainen jäsenyys edellyttää kaikilta merkittäviä uudistuksia, suurta kehitystä. Mutta myös Euroopan unionin on uudistuttava. Meillä on kohta 10 hakijamaata ja on selvää, että Euroopan unionin on vahvistettava talouden rakenteitaan, vahvistettava oikeusvaltioperiaatteen toteutumista ja lisättävä omaa ulkopolitiikan päätöksentekokykyään, jotta olisimme valmiita tähän laajentumiseen. Ja on erittäin harmillista, että jäsenmaat eivät ole tarttuneet tässä parlamentin aloitteeseen, jossa vaaditaan Euroopan unionin uudistuksia.
Thank you. Next speaker, Josas Olekas, I would remind 1 minute, and colleagues, please come a bit with a lower noise. Thank you.
Thank you, President. I congratulate the decision by the Council on the status of candidate country to Ukraine and Moldova and the European perspective to Georgia. I support the idea that we have to start membership negotiations with Albania and North Macedonia. We have taken into account people's view to strengthen EU without increasing bureaucracy, but strengthening the political platform, energy and healthcare. It's good that the Council supported further political, financial and military support to Ukraine. But the funds we have envisaged are not sufficient. We have to look for further instruments. And finally, we have to take care at the European level that the crops from the Ukraine are transported to neighboring countries and Northern Africa. We have to compensate for the price increases to European citizens. Thank you.
Speaker left there is Christophorou for 1 minute, and colleagues, please be less noisy. Mr. Christophorou, are you?
Yes. Dear Chairman, the EU, in honoring its history and its values, very rightly stood at the side of the Ukrainian people against this barbaric Russian invasion. We were from the beginning on the side of the Ukrainian people because we know very well what invasion means. But this month, the month of July, is the 48th anniversary of the barbaric Turkish invasion in Cyprus. So I would like to ask the European Commission and the European Council and ask them, what am I going to tell to my people, the 200,000 people that have been displaced and are still waiting to return, when we're still calling Turkey a strategic partner, when they're still taking money from the EU and their guns are pointed towards us? Thank you.
Next speaker, Juan Fernando Lopez Aguilar. Is he speaking? Well, Lopez Aguilar, the floor is yours.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you so much, President of Council. Well, we need to give a political move to the Pact on Immigration. We cannot possibly waste any time. There are many, 4 or 5 regulations that are pending from the previous legislative period, and we need to really go quickly, as the roadmap clearly indicates. There can't be any border controls without binding solidarity. And we also need to show that the external borders of the European Union are borders of a union. So they can't possibly be a perspective of the North which prevails over the perspective of the South, or the East getting more benefits than the West. We really need a European response to the demographic dimension, the humanitarian dimension, and we need to get legislation, European legislation, binding to member states and to be taken on by all member states. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next has the floor Maria Grappini.
Mulțumesc, domnule președinte, domnule comisar. Sigur, regret.
Thank you very much, President and Vice President of the Commission. I do regret that the Council is not here. Apparently, Mr. Michel is coming, but I just wanted to say that he said that we need a political community. I would just like to recall that the EU should be an economic community. And what are we doing for citizens? What are we doing for member states that are lagging behind, that need more cohesion? What about the food crisis? What are we doing with the energy crisis? And I'd like to also ask Charles Michel, what's happening in the Netherlands? The government allowed the police to fire at farmers who are producing our food. Vice President of the Commission, I would like to pass this message on to the President. Do we have a single EU? Will we be admitted to the Schengen area or not?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm glad that the chamber is full now, that everyone will listen. In June's conclusion of the European Council, there was another call on Turkey to respect international law and terminate its unilateral and aggressive actions in the Eastern Mediterranean. But I'd like everyone to remember that on March 2021, in the statement of the European Council, I'm reading straight from there, we call on Turkey to abstain from renewed provocations or unilateral actions in breach of international law. We reaffirm the determination of the European Union in case of such actions to use the instruments and options at its disposal to defend its interests and those of its member states. My final word, we stand with international law against Putin's aggressive actions in Ukraine. We stand with the values of the European Union, and we expect from everyone to respect the values that are being violated in the Eastern Mediterranean against Cyprus and against Greece by Turkish aggressive regime.
Thank you. We are closing HDI procedure, and now for the Commission, Vice President Šefčovič, you have a floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, Mr. Minister, honourable members. I'll be very brief because I know that we have very important and exciting voting session ahead of us. So allow me just a few brief remarks. First and foremost, that I would like to thank all honourable members for the strong support for the candidate status of Ukraine and Moldova. And I would like to respond to Mr. Mureșanu and others who've been pleading with the European Commission to make sure they will provide them all necessary technical assistance so they will be prepared for the eventual opening of the enlargement negotiations and to prepare them for the necessary reforms. And it was part of the debate we had with the Czech presidency, where in particular I think the new member states can share a lot of experience from the transformation process, from the process how to be best prepared for this negotiation. Madam Niebler, Mr. Olekas just a few minutes ago been calling for more assertive, clearer policy towards Western Balkans. And I think it was clearly one of the conclusions and the feeling of the leaders after conclusion of the summit with Western Balkans that indeed we have to do much more, because what the Western Balkan leaders would like to see is more tangible efforts, a clearer path to accelerated accession talks and clearer results which they can present to their citizens. So we are, of course, reflecting together with you, with our member states, how to bring this new energy and new impetus into the whole process. And you know that the Commission is wholeheartedly behind this effort. We have seen positive developments in Northern Macedonia. We hope that this process will unblock the further steps for Northern Macedonia and Albania. And if it comes to Bosnia and Herzegovina, we'll be working together with the member states and with all of you and with Bosnia and Herzegovina to make sure that these 14 very important criteria are properly fulfilled, so it could open the doors for further steps for Bosnia and Herzegovina as well. Madame Bonafé, Madame Aubry, Madame Votman's been referring to the importance of making sure that we would respect the citizens' demands, proposals, propositions, requests, which they presented during the conference on the future of Europe. I would like to reassure all of you that in the first speech the President of the European Commission will make in September on the State of the Union, you will see the reflection of how Commission wants to respond and how Commission wants to guarantee the follow-up to the results on the conference on future of Europe and how we want to incorporate it in the Commission work program already for the next year. And of course, the crucial question of the convention. Again, I would like to underscore our readiness. Once the decision is taken, we will do our utmost to play our part to make sure that our European Union is better and stronger. Last 2 points. One on energy-related issues. We, of course, are heading towards a very difficult period. I think we see it every day, and therefore we are working around the clock to make sure that on the 20th of July we will adopt the set of measures which would constitute European emergency plan for any eventualities which could meet us in this very difficult energy landscape. We want to make sure that solidarity, of course, will be the anchor of all the rules and processes we would propose. And of course, we'll be very happy to share and discuss this with the European Parliament. And the last point, and clear answers to Madame Grappini, because I'm sure that this House knows very well, but I think it's worth repeating that if it comes to Romania, Bulgaria, Croatia, we are strongly convinced they are prepared for the Schengen memberships and that it should happen rather sooner than later, because it would make the European Union more secure and stronger. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President. Debate is closed and we will continue plenary with vote.
Good afternoon. We now come to the votes. We start with the report by Gabriele Bischoff on amendment to Parliament's Rules of Procedure concerning Rule 216 on committee meetings. I'll start by giving the floor to the rapporteur for 2 minutes. Microphone for number 50, please.
Now it's working. Fantastic. Thank you, Ms. President. Dear colleagues, we are now voting on the amendment of the Rules of Procedure to allow for a hybrid committee working regime in the future. The working groups on the Rule of Procedure has been mandated by our President to prepare a report to implement the decision of the COP of the 2nd of June, and this decision has been supported by all political groups. We have prepared this report under a lot of time pressure and under short notice. And our working method is based on consensus. And we achieved a consensus in this working group. And on this basis, we proposed my report that is presented today for vote. On Monday, it was supported by a broad majority in the AFCO committee. Dear colleagues, I now count on you also to support to amend Rule 216 of our Rules of Procedure and to respect the consensus that has been found first in the COP, then in the AFCO working group, then in the AFCO, and I hope also here in the plenary. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Bischoff. Now we move to Amendment 4 by roll call. I open the vote. I close the vote, and it is rejected. Therefore, we move to Amendment 1 in 4 parts. First part by roll call. The vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Second part by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Third part by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. It is not adopted because we need 353 votes for this. Fourth part by roll call. Vote is open. It's a majority of component members that is needed. Vote is closed, and it is adopted. We move to Amendment 2 by show of hands. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Amendment 5 by roll call. The vote is open. Vote is closed, and it is rejected. That means we vote on Amendment 3 by show of hands. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. We vote on the proposal for a decision, this time by simple majority by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed, and it is adopted. We move to the objection amending the Taxonomy Climate Delegated Act and the Taxonomy Disclosures Delegated Act. For this, we also need a majority of Parliament's component members, which is 353 votes. So we vote on the resolution as a whole by roll call. The vote is open. Vote is closed. It is rejected, so Parliament, that means that Parliament has not objected to the Commission delegated regulation of 9th of March 2022. We go
next to the objection, technical standards for the application of position limits. We move next. We move next. We move next. Thank you, dear colleagues. We move next to the objection for technical standards for the application of position limits to commodity derivatives and procedures for applying the exemption from position limits. We vote on the resolution as a whole by roll call. The vote is open. Vote is closed. And it is rejected, so Parliament has not objected to the delegated regulation of 28 April 2022. We move next to the report by Nuno Melo on Russia's invasion of Ukraine, additional crisis measures in the EU fishery and aquaculture sectors. I give the floor to Mr. Mato to speak on behalf of the rapporteur for 2 minutes.
Muchas gracias, Presidenta. Tomo muy brevemente.
Thank you. I'll take the floor very briefly before the vote, because unfortunately the matters related to the Fisheries Committee don't seem to be very important to certain groups, because session after session they make it impossible for us to have a debate and to have this visible in plenary. These are such important subjects, such as the one we're going to be voting on today, tabled by Mr. Melo. The negative impact of the war in the Ukraine should be included in the maritime funds and the fisheries funds, because fisheries and agriculture are crucial to the European Union. The Union needs to take action to make sure that these companies can survive and the jobs can be maintained. So the package will make it possible to add measures to this to support agriculture and fisheries sectors of the Union because of the Russian invasion of the Ukraine. There'll be funding to compensate for the additional costs, for the loss of earnings, and the storing of goods, and it will also extend support to companies which on a temporary basis cannot fish because of economic restrictions. The final adoption of this legislative proposal will give support to the farmers, to the fishermen in a very rapid time, and it will also be retroactively introduced. That would be from February this year. The report was approved unanimously in the Fisheries Committee, and hopefully it will be supported here in Parliament as well. Thank you.
So we move to vote on the provisional agreement, Amendment 9 by roll call. The vote is open. Vote is closed, and it is adopted, and the first reading of Parliament is thereby closed. We move to the report by Paulo Rangel on the 2021 report on Bosnia and Herzegovina. We start with Amendment 17 by show of hands. Who's in favour? Who is against? Who abstains? Rejected. Amendment 11 by roll call. The vote is open. Vote is closed, and it is adopted. Amendment 3 by roll call. The vote is open. Vote is closed, and it is adopted. Amendment 4 in 2 parts, both by roll call. First part, the vote is open. Vote is closed, and it is adopted. Second part by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed, and it is adopted. Amendment 18 by show of hands. Who's in favour? Who's against? Abstains? We need to check. I open the vote. Close the vote, and it is rejected. Amendment 12, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Amendment 5, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Amendment 19, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Rejected. Paragraph 66 in two parts. First part, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Second part, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Amendment 6, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Amendment 20, who's in favour? Who's against? Abstains? Rejected. Amendment 13 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. And it is adopted. Paragraph 77, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Not clear. We open the vote to check. Vote is closed. And it is adopted. Paragraph 78 in two parts. First part, who's in favour? Who's against? Abstains? Adopted. Second part, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? We check this. Vote is open. Vote is closed. And it is adopted. Amendment 7 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Amendment 8 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 9 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 10 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 14. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Rejected. Amendment 1. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Amendment 2. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Amendment 15. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Rejected. Amendment 16. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? This is not clear. We open the vote. Vote is closed. And it is rejected. We vote on the resolution as a whole by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. And it is adopted. We move to the report by Vladimir Bilčík on the 2021 report on Serbia. Paragraph 3 in two parts. First part, by show of hands. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Second part, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Amendment 1. Who's in favour? Who is against? Who abstains? It's not clear. We open the vote. Vote is closed. And it is adopted. That means that Amendment 3 falls. Paragraph 10, original text. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Paragraph 14. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Paragraph 55 in two parts. First part. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Second part. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Paragraph 56. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. 72 in two parts. First part. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Second part. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Amendment 2. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. I give the floor now to Mr. Vladimir Bilčík to move an oral amendment.
Thank you, Madam President. Dear colleagues, in light of the developments in the region last week, which have risen tensions in the region, but also put into question the EU-facilitated dialogue between Belgrade and Pristina, I propose to move the following oral amendment on the 2021 report on Serbia. After paragraph 78, it should read the following. Regrets the rising tensions related to attempts at resolving the issues of license plates and freedom of movement in Kosovo. reiterates the crucial importance of addressing all outstanding issues through the Belgrade-Pristina dialogue transparently, consequently, timely, and in good faith. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bilcik. Can I ask if there is any opposition to the oral amendment? If so, please stand up. There needs to be 38 members who oppose. There is more than 38 members who oppose, and therefore the oral amendment will not be put to the vote. We therefore vote on the resolution as a whole by roll call. The vote is open. Vote is closed, and it is adopted. We move to the report by Viola von Kramon Taubadel on the 2021 report on Kosovo. We start with paragraph 6. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Paragraph 7. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Paragraph 11 in 2 parts, both by roll call. First part, vote is open. Vote is closed, and it is adopted. Second part, by roll call, vote is open. Vote is closed. It is adopted. Amendment 2, who's in favour? Who's against? Abstains? Adopted. Paragraph 30, who's in favour? Who's against? Abstains? Adopted. Paragraph 53, by roll call, vote is open. Vote is closed, and it is adopted. Amendment 1, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Paragraph 70 in 2 parts. First part, by roll call. Vote is closed, and it is adopted. Second part, who's in favour? Who's against? Abstains? Adopted. Paragraph 86 in 2 parts. First part, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Second part, by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed, and it is adopted. Recital B, by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed, and it is adopted. Recital E, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. We vote on the resolution as a whole by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed, and it is adopted. We move to the report by Javi Lopez on the EU and the defence of multilateralism. Paragraph 67 in 2 parts. First part, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Second part, who's in favour? Who's against? Not clear. We open the vote on this. Vote is closed, and it is adopted. Paragraph 19, 2 parts. First part, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Second part, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Amendment 1, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. We vote on the resolution as a whole by roll call. The vote is open. Vote is closed, and it is adopted. We move to the report by Beata Kempa on addressing food security in developing countries. It's a single vote by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed, and it is adopted. We move to the report by Jordi Cañas on EU Action Plan for the Social Economy. Amendment 1 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Paragraph 14 by show of hands. Who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? We check this. Vote is open. Vote is closed, and it is adopted. Paragraph 15, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Paragraph 16 in 2 parts. First part, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Second part, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Paragraph 19, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Rejected. Paragraph 37 in two parts. We can check paragraph 19. We've opened the vote. Close the vote. And it is adopted. Paragraph 37 in two parts. First part, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Second part, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Rejected. Paragraph 38, we check as well. Paragraph 37, second part. Vote is closed. And it is adopted. Apologies. Paragraph 38 in two parts. First part by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. And it is adopted. Second part by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. And it is adopted. Paragraph 39 in two parts. First part, who's in favour? Who is against? Who abstains? Adopted. Second part, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Paragraph 42 in two parts. First part, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Second part, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Paragraph 52 in two parts. First part, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Second part, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Paragraph 56, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. Paragraph 16, two parts. First part, in favour? Against? Abstentions? Adopted. Second part, who's in favour? Who's against? Who abstains? Adopted. We vote on the ample resolution as a whole by roll call. The vote is open. Vote is closed. And it is adopted. Congratulations. We move to the report by Alice Kuhnke on intersectional discrimination in the European Union, the socio-economic situation of women of African, Middle Eastern, Latin American and Asian descent. I give the floor to Ms. Kuhnke as rapporteur for 2 minutes.
Tack, fru talman. Förenade i mångfald, det är EU.
Thank you very much. United in diversity, that is a key message for the EU, but we here in the hemicycle do not represent the diversity amongst EU citizens. This is due to the fact that we do not all have the same possibility to make our voice heard. There are many of us that face discrimination. And discrimination can be intersectional. There are often more than one factor that is at play here, factors that are accumulated. This report that we are about to vote on is a step in the right direction. We acknowledge this intersectional discrimination. We need to do more to tackle this discrimination, and we will have a number of tools to do this. I thank all the colleagues from the left and the right who have cooperated to help us achieve this result. Thank you very much.
Ms. Kuhnke, we now vote on the resolution as a whole by roll call. The vote is open. The vote is closed, and it is adopted. We move to the joint motion for a resolution by 4 political groups on national vetoes to undermine the global tax deal. We move to Amendment 1 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed, and it is rejected. Amendment 2 by roll call. Vote is open. The vote is closed, and it is rejected. Amendment 3 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed, and it is rejected. Amendment 4 by roll call. The vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 5 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 6 by roll call. Vote is open. The vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 7 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. And it is rejected. Amendment 8 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 11 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 12 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 13 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 14 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 15 by roll call. The vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 16 by roll call. The vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. And paragraph 17 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Adopted. Amendment 17 by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Rejected. Amendment 9. Who's in favor? Who's against? Who abstains? Rejected. Amendment 10. Who's in favor? Who's against? Who abstains? Rejected. Recital M. Who's in favor? Who's against? Who abstains? I'll check this. We've opened the vote. Vote is closed, and it is adopted. We vote on the resolution as a whole by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed, and it is adopted. Thereby, we reach the end of the votes. However, the Commission, Vice President Šefčovič, would like to make a brief statement on the Melo report. Go ahead, Vice President.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Honourable members, the Commission welcomes the swift adoption by the European Parliament and the Council on the amendment to the European Maritime and Fisheries Fund, making specific support measures available to fisheries and aquaculture operators to alleviate the consequences of the military aggression of Russia against Ukraine and to mitigate the effects. However, the Commission urges caution in the use of the measures providing compensation for the temporary cessation of fishing activities, as widespread use of temporary cessation could have the unintended consequence of exacerbating the disruption of the fisheries supply chain because of the drop of supply on the market. We have therefore transmitted a written statement to this effect for the inclusion in your minutes. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Vice President. We move to the next part of the session.
Meine Damen und Herren, dear colleagues.
Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues.
We are not finished with our debate, so I ask you please if you will not stay here, please be silent and leave the hemicycle. Thank you. Dear colleagues, please leave the hemicycle. Dear colleagues, I have to continue our debate. Wir kommen nun zu den
We now come to debates. The next will be statements by the Council and the Commission with regard to the unilateral introduction of the North Ireland Protocol Bill by the UK government and respect for international law. This debate is taking place under the same framework conditions for seating, blue cards, etc. So exactly the same rules of procedure as we had for the previous debates. And so I would now like to start with the debate. And on behalf of the Council, the Minister for European Affairs, Beck Nicholas, and give him the floor.
Michael.
Dear Mr. President, dear honourable members, it has not even been 2 years since the United Kingdom and the European Union entered into the trade and cooperation agreement with the consent and support of the European Parliament. The withdrawal agreement and its protocol on Ireland and Northern Ireland, which is just over 2.5 years old itself, is already at risk of being torn apart by the UK. The United Kingdom's government has proposed a law to unilaterally suspend the application of the protocol's key provisions, and the bill is already advancing in the UK Parliament. The Council is highly concerned about the situation. We remain fully united and mobilised to protect the citizens who benefit from the withdrawal agreement, to protect the Good Friday Agreement, and to protect our single market. The European Parliament's active engagement was of prime importance to bring the previous negotiations to a swift conclusion. I trust that we will once again show our united front in face of this unconstructive attitude by the United Kingdom. As always on Brexit, unity among member states, but also among institutions, is our most precious asset. We need to send a clear signal to the UK government. Let there be no doubt that the EU seeks to have a strategic, enduring, and mutually beneficial partnership with the United Kingdom. In the current geopolitical situation, the EU and the UK stand side by side in our response to Russia's brutal and unjustified war against Ukraine. We are both peaceful democracies that insist on respecting international agreements. It is therefore unacceptable to take steps which violate international commitments. In the current circumstances, we must all hold ourselves to the highest standards, including respecting international agreements. The protocol on Ireland and Northern Ireland was the solution agreed with the current UK Prime Minister's government to protect the Good Friday Agreement in all its dimensions and to avoid a hard border on the island of Ireland while protecting the integrity of the EU single market. The EU stands fully united in rejecting a renegotiation of the protocol, as it is the agreed solution to the challenge posed to the island of Ireland by the type of Brexit chosen by the UK. In years of intense negotiations between the two sides, no better solution was found. The UK government must return to working jointly to solve the practical issues already identified within the context of the protocol. This is also what stakeholders in Northern Ireland expect. Recent trade figures show that the protocol is working. The GDP in Northern Ireland is growing faster than in the rest of the UK. The EU and the UK share a common responsibility to demonstrate that, instead of starting artificial confrontations, they can find durable solutions by working together pragmatically and in full respect of international commitments. Our evolving partnership must be based on respecting existing international agreements and by foreseeable actions taken within the joint bodies, further building up mutual trust. That is what our citizens expect from democratic leaders and institutions. Thank you.
Herzlichen Dank,
Thank you very much to the Council. And now I would like to give the floor to the Maros Šefčovič, Vice President of the European Commission.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, Mr. Minister, honorable members. First and foremost, I'm grateful for the opportunity to address you today and provide an update on the latest development regarding the protocol on Ireland and Northern Ireland. Let me start by reaffirming that the European Union wishes to have a positive and stable relationship with the United Kingdom. We are partners facing the same global challenges where upholding the rule of law is imperative. And I think it was very well described by Minister Beck just a minute ago. Our relationship must be therefore based on the agreements that both parties negotiated, agreed, and ratified. The withdrawal agreement and the trade and cooperation agreement. The protocol on Ireland and Northern Ireland is an integral part of the withdrawal agreement. The protocol protects the Good Friday Belfast Agreement in all its dimensions, avoids the hard border on the island of Ireland, while protecting the integrity of island of Ireland and integrity of the internal market, and respects the constitutional position of the Northern Ireland within the United Kingdom. Let us not forget that the protocol was the only joint solution found to protect the hard-earned gains of the peace process in Northern Ireland while addressing the challenges created by Brexit and the type of Brexit chosen by the UK government. So we need to be realistic. No alternative solution has been found, and it is not needed. From the very beginning, we have shown a lot of understanding for the practical difficulties in the implementation of the protocol, and we demonstrated that solutions can be found within its framework. This is what we did, for example, with our medicines package. It was adopted in record time, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank you once again for your crucial role in it. We also propose solutions in the customs and sanitary and phytosanitary areas in order to further facilitate trade between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. We always insisted that we want to work towards joint solutions that are durable. Very importantly, we also made it clear that whilst we stand ready to discuss facilitations, we will need firm guarantees as regards the protection of our internal market. Throughout this time, we worked towards the joint outcome, because only joint solutions would bring the legal certainty and predictability for the people and businesses in Northern Ireland. We made it clear that any unilateral action would only have the opposite effect, and it would erode trust between partners, which is the very basis for our work. Despite all these efforts, the UK government tabled the so-called Northern Ireland Protocol Bill on the 13th of June. If adopted, this bill would disapply most provisions of the protocol, and this is unacceptable. There is no legal or political justification whatsoever for the UK to unilaterally change an international agreement. First of all, there are other ways to solve the problems regarding implementation of the protocol together, and we proved that with our package of solutions we know how to do that. Secondly, our interests at the other party to the agreement are seriously harmed, because this is about the conditions for Northern Ireland access to the EU's internal market for goods. And it is simply legally and politically inconceivable that the UK government decides these conditions unilaterally. Let us not forget that the current trading arrangements between Great Britain and Northern Ireland are not in line with the protocol because of the unilateral grace periods put in place by the UK government. The European Commission reacted in a proportionate and gradual manner. First of all, you will remember that we had paused legal action over the past year in order to create a constructive atmosphere to identify joint solutions. This bill goes against the spirit, and for that reason, we have relaunched our legal action against the UK for not complying with key parts of the protocol. In parallel, and further to extensive engagement with businesses in Northern Ireland, we have published in greater detail our model for the flexible implementation of the protocol based on durable solutions within the protocol. In a nutshell, our solutions would create an express lane for goods moving from Great Britain to Northern Ireland. They would reduce sanitary and phytosanitary checks and controls by more than 80%. They would cut customs paperwork in half. They would offer simplified certification, a single 3-page document for the whole lorry full of different goods filled only once a month. And they would allow even the movement of certain goods that would otherwise be restricted, such as chilled meat. This demonstrates that solution exists. And as you just heard a few minutes ago by the Czech presidency, European Union is united in this view, and I really would like to thank French and Czech presidencies for expressing the position and unanimous support of the member states so clearly, and I want to express my gratitude to the European Parliament to support this approach as well. I would like to close, honourable member, by underlining that our door remains open to the UK for dialogue in order to identify joint solutions forward within the framework of the protocol based on the solutions I have just mentioned. It is now for the UK to walk through that door. And I sincerely believe that with political will and genuine commitment, solutions are still within the reach. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Herr Vizepräsident, recht herzlichen
Thank you very much, Vice President, for your statement and these comments. And now I give the floor to Sean Kelly.
Commissioner of the Scorda, the Northern Ireland Protocol Bill marks